Hey everybody, this is Nikki Burnett. My company is Taste Life Nutrition. I'm a functional nutritionist and I practice strategic evidence-based nutritional consulting. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about baby formula. Specifically, I came across an article talking about soy-based baby formula, and I think what we'll talk about here will be some of the soy-based formulas, but we'll get into some other stuff too. Also, just to throw it out there, this might be a bit clunky because as I got deeper and deeper into looking into this, it can go pretty deep. So I have 3 different pages pulled up here in order to give as much information as I can in the shortest amount of time possible. But I'm kind of be going back and forth a bit. But I thought that this was a really a great thing to talk about because we've been told for so many years that formula is okay. If you've heard me talk before, you can probably assume that I don't agree with that. There's really nothing like breast milk, but what do we do when we're not able, as a mother, to breastfeed for whatever reason or another? You know, there are many reasons why mothers aren't able to breastfeed sometimes, whether it's for short or long periods of time. So what do we do with that? This particular article, interesting enough though, says babies fed soy-based formula have changes in reproductive system tissues. So let's talk a little bit about soy. Yesterday I hit on it some when we were talking about fortified foods, but today I want to dig into soy a little bit here as it relates to how it can affect the body, and if it can affect adults, it certainly can affect children and little babies. Okay, so soy for one has what's called trypsin inhibitors. And if you saw me yesterday, you're going to hear this again, but I want to repeat it. So trypsin inhibitors don't allow for the breakdown of protein. So we need proteins to break down to amino acids to perform many functions, including the production or the formulation of neurotransmitters, muscle tissue, many functions in the body are necessary, amino acids are necessary for. So that's one problem. Another problem is GMOs I don't remember, the number has probably gone up, but it's 93, 94, 95%, I just said GMO. Soy is 93 to 95%, maybe more, genetically modified. So what we're finding, although we're still doing studies and looking at the data, but people are having negative responses to genetically modified foods. The body has a hard time understanding what the food is. And so let's talk just real quickly what the difference is between hybridization, which you see in a lot of plants, and genetic modification. Hybridization, like with the wheat plant, means you put 2 different wheat plants together in order to make a little bit of a different wheat plant. So what we've done with gluten is we've brought 2 high gluten wheat plants together to continually increase the gluten content. Now, genetic modification of live video is you get a phone call on your phone. Anyway, so genetic modification is when you put 2 species together that would never actually come together on its own. It's not a natural process. It's where there's human interference. You do it in a lab, and so that's the difference between the 2. So genetic modification, soy, corn, alfalfa, sugar beets, canola, cotton, a lot of those are all super high. Most of what you see is genetically modified. Okay, so let's move on past that. So on top of the genetic modification, soy and all of those that I just talked about are super high in herbicides and pesticides. It has been proven that these create leaky gut. It expands the cells in the gut, causing problems, causing inflammation, and very likely leading to lots of conditions, including autoimmune conditions. Okay, so organic, different story, of course. You're not going to find the pesticides and the herbicides if it's organic, but it doesn't take away all of the other problems that come with soy. So even if you're feeding a soy-based organic formula, I think it's not a good idea. Now, let's move on to why it can create reproductive system cell changes. So soy is considered a phytoestrogen. This is not always a bad thing. There was a time in my career I thought all soy is bad and we need to stay away from it. Not necessarily true. Some people, depending on their particular health status or hormone status, may need to have some of those phytoestrogens to help balance their hormones. Not a bad thing. So we want to stay away from things like soy proteins and even soybeans, although kind of fun to eat. If I'll have a few edamame every now and then, I'm just really aware of what it's doing. If it's fermented, totally different story. So fermented soy-based products are going to be tempeh, miso, tamari, and natto. All great things. I think that they are healthy, and especially in moderation, because unless somebody needs them for therapeutic purposes. But if they're organic and fermented, it inactivates that trypsin inhibitor, and then it can actually become a healthy food. Plus, it's got good bacteria in it. That's why it's fermented. We want that good bacteria. Okay, so what they found, there's the study that where they studied soy-based formulas and then cow milk-based formulas as well as breast milk-based formulas. And here is what they found. Let me find it. So the main differences, I'm just going to read it to you, it's pretty short, is, let's see, they compared both cow's milk to the soy-based formula and then breastfed to the soy-based formula. And they found vaginal cell maturational index was higher and uterine volume decreased more slowly in soy-fed girls, both of which suggest estrogen-like responses. Now, it would make sense if we actually use soy therapeutically because of its phytoestrogens in people that are trying to balance their hormones. What do we think it's going to do to babies? It's going to create problems. And now, so these are only girls. What's it going to do to boys? I don't know. I can't imagine it's good. So, and the study was that I can tell was only girls. But anyway, so what they say is they don't know if these are long-term effects, and the study was a very small study. But that's all it talks about is just soy being a problem with some reproductive issues, which I fully agree with. But let's move away from that for just a minute. That's the bulk of the study. And I'll post it below as well as the other articles that I reference in this talk. But what I decided to do was then look up the ingredients to the soy-based formulas. And I basically threw up in my mouth when I saw it, because it breaks my heart what it is that, we think that we're feeding our children the best that we possibly can. That's what we want for them. We want to feed them the best. And so we hear, yes, these formulas, they're the best, and feed them to your children. But we don't understand what the ingredients are and what it's doing. So I had an ingredient list to one of the formulas here. I think it's Enfamil. It is Enfamil, the Pro Sobeys formula, whatever that means, I don't know. So the first ingredient is corn maltodextrin. It's a sugar. The first ingredient is sugar. Corn, what I say a few minutes ago, unless organic, it's one of the highest in pesticides and herbicides. It's also one of the highest in highest genetically modified foods. I think it's right up there with soy, probably 93-95% genetically modified. Guarantee you, in this formula, it's genetically modified. The second ingredient is vegetable oils: palm, soy, coconut, safflower, and sunflower. So these oils, let's take out palm and let's take out coconut, which I don't trust that they're cold pressed. I don't trust that they're organic. Probably not the best things, but let's take those out for a minute and let's look at soy oil, safflower oil, and sunflower oil. Highly processed, especially the soy oil, highly processed with different chemicals and solvents to take the oil out of the seed, and anyway, I'm fumbling over my words a little bit, but it's a nasty process full of nasty chemicals that tries to create a shelf-stable oil. It's shelf-stable because it's been so modified and becomes a trans fat. So we are automatically putting sugar, inflammatory sugars, I will say potentially inflammatory genetically modified foods, definitely inflammatory pesticides and herbicides, and then inflammatory oils in our baby as soon as they're born, or when they're 6 months or a year, whatever the case is. Move on beyond that, enzymatically hydrolyzed soy protein isolate. I've hit on soy enough for you to know that I think that's a bad idea. Then the next one is sucrose, which is sugar. More sugar. Why? Don't know, but there's more sugar. And then calcium phosphate, calcium citrate, sodium citrate, calcium citrate. All of those, I believe, are preservatives. And then we have what's called M-alpina oil and C-coney oil and magnesium. So I didn't know if those last two, or the two ingredients before magnesium, I'd never heard of those. So I started to look around, which took me then to an article that I definitely will post by the Weston A. Price Foundation, which, if you don't know the Weston A. Price Foundation, an amazing organization. They have more information and more studies, and this particular article I can't even go through because it is so long that I would sit on here with you for probably the next 3 hours talking about it, which I can't do. It's Friday. So, but I wanted to find out what that was. And so in moving through this article, what I found, and I think I said this, but I'm going to post this because there's so much great information in here. Anybody thinking about having a baby, feeding a baby formula, I really want you to read this article because I think it's a great one. But let's see, they're talking about, all of the sugars that are put in. They're talking about how some of the milk, so if you put in, if you're using cow's milk, or what would be cow's milk, carnation if their cow's milk is irradiated, okay? They do that to kill the bacteria, but it also changes the natural structure of the molecules, and the body doesn't know what it is. It doesn't recognize it as a food. So what's it going to do? It's going to become inflamed. It's going to attack. It's going to not know what to do with this food, and maybe stores it somewhere. Nasty stuff. Let's see. No. Sorry. Get to where I was looking for the ingredients here. So they were talking about their ingredients. They got their ingredients from from some other forms of milk, and so we have. Some of them have lactose, like I said, corn, maltodextrins, fat is soy oil, coconut palm. Okay, I'm sorry, I don't need to go through this. Okay, the synthetic nutrients, and we talked some about synthetic nutrients yesterday. So putting in synthetic nutrients create more harm than they do good. The body doesn't recognize them as healthy nutrients. It doesn't recognize them as cofactors or vitamins. It creates problems. It's not absorbed, and I think I read a study one time, the vitamin E, synthetic vitamin E, was absorbed, I don't know, 10% or something like that, and the rest just creates problems. So there's synthetic arachidonic acid, or ARA, and DHA, which is we were talking yesterday about fish oils, so DHA and EPA are fish oils. And so we think it's a good thing to have DHA in our formula because that's what's natural in breast milk. Our breast milk is super high in DHA. It's great for the brain, it's brain for development, for us, for the baby. Really super important. But what we're finding is it's synthetic. And I'm going to get into that a little more here in just a minute. But the synthetic vitamins, the A, E, D, K, B1, 3, 5, 6, C, folic acid, which we talked about yesterday. Remember, folic acid is synthetic. We want to have folate. Pregnant moms. Before you become pregnant, when you're pregnant, after pregnancy, folate, not folic acid. Please, please take that to heart. It's very, very important. But I don't need to go through all of these, but I mean, the amino acids, all of these things are synthetic, okay? They're even adding in carrageenan, which you wouldn't think is bad. It's a seaweed, but what they're showing, for one, it is problematic with the GI, 2, potentially carcinogenic, okay? So now I want to get into the fatty acids. So the DHA and the ARA, the arachidonic acid, what they're doing to produce this fatty acid synthetically is they are, let's see, they are, okay, they're making the fatty acids from a strain of genetically modified algae through induced mutations with the use of radiation and harsh chemicals. The algae are fermented in tanks containing corn syrup, ethanol, and other ingredients, and then immersed in a bath of hexane. Seriously? And petrochemical solvent, which is a known neurotoxin, according to the CDC. If used in infant formulas, it is microencapsulated, which is also prohibited in organic standards. It is also preserved with synthetic ingredients prohibited in organic standards like mannitol, modified starch, glucose syrup solids, ascorbyl palmitate, and beta-carotene. Let's see. It is the artificially produced DHA is used extensively in omega-3 supplements and foods. The natural source of DHA is fish or fish liver oil. All right, there's a lot to that, but if that doesn't give you an idea of what is in this formula, it's heartbreaking. It's seriously heartbreaking what these big food companies think is okay to do to our kids and to do to us. And they take advantage of the fact that we don't know food. But that's why I want to do these things so desperately, is so we can be educated consumers. We can go out there and we can look at the can and say, this is not okay. And maybe one day we won't buy enough and they stop making it. It breaks my heart. Okay, I'll get off my soapbox. But I think that's pretty good. Oh, let's do this. Let's hit a little bit on what could be a good formula. I actually have a recipe of what another practitioner had given me, somebody that I worked under for a bit, interned under for a bit. And so think about this. Now, we talked about, and I talk a lot about dairy and raw milk. And so raw milk can be okay for some people, including babies. So raw has not been pasteurized, it's not been homogenized, it's a whole food, it's a real food. It does have larger molecules and larger proteins than other milks, including human breast milk. So for some may create some problems, but genetically, some of us have the ability to digest dairy, even from cows, and others don't. So children, babies can thrive from raw cow milk. But we can also look at raw goat milk or raw sheep milk, or get this is the coolest thing, raw camel milk. I actually just got some raw camel milk. There are a lot of really cool things going around about raw camel milk, and one of those things is it's the closest to human breast milk. So it's also a bit expensive, so not available to everybody. But it's interesting. It tastes great. It's rich. Tastes like milk, but it's a little bit richer than regular milk would be. So there are options out there that you can make your own good, healthy formulas for your kiddos if there are problems with your own breast milk. Also, this is a really kind of a beautiful story. I have a family who produced a lot of breast milk, and there were needs in her community where people needed breast milk, and so she was able to donate breast milk. Think about that as well. That's probably the next best thing to your own, right? So look at your ingredients. Look at the ingredients of your food, of your baby's food, your kids' food, your dog's food. Let's understand what's in this food. Let's stop buying the crap. Let's show these companies that we don't want to be fed crap, that we're educated consumers, and that we want to be healthy and not let them feed us trash. Okay. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to post them below. Let me know if there's anything that I can do. You can go to my website, tastelifenutrition.com. or my Facebook page. Let me know if you have questions about anything, and I will probably not do this again over the weekend because I like to take my weekends and play a little bit. But I'll do this again on Monday. Let me know if there's anything I can do for you, and everybody have a great weekend. Bye.